And I want you to welcome the Waldens here to TV 57 on Atlanta Live. God bless you.
Thanks for having us out.
Thank you guys.
So good to be here. Thank you so much.
All the way from California.
Yes.
You have a phenomenal story. I don't want to steal your thunder. So I want you, Gina, to go ahead and tell us who you are and begin to talk about that.
Sure. Yeah, we've had an amazing time the past few years, and God has brought us through an incredible journey. We wrote a book this last year called A Brand New Day.
Okay.
It's about our son, Ethan Walden.
Gotcha.
And we released a CD, which is also A Brand New Day, and it's the songs from our journey that God has brought us through, and I'll tell you about the journey.
Okay.
First of all, we start out in our book talking about my background.
Okay.
It's written from my perspective. And basically, I grew up in a Christian home, and my family is ministry, both sides. Both my grandparents were in the ministry. My grandfather, Frank Folio, was one of the founding members of Full Gospel Businessmen. He was an author. He wrote a book called Hey God. My family is Italian, so it's about our big Italian family and the miracles that God did in our family. And then my other grandfather, he was a pastor in a church in San Bernardino, California, and that's where I grew up. And I grew up singing in the church. Every Sunday I was his special guest, you know, his granddaughter. And he'd sing with me and teach me how to sing, and just that's where I grew up in the ways of the Lord. And since I was little, it's been my dream to sing. I just wanted to sing for the Lord. I wanted to share my music and just do what God has given me in that gifting. And I was able to do that at a really young age. I was signed to a record deal at 17 years old. And I lived the dream for about 10 years. We released 10 worship projects. They were called Nitro Praise. They're basically like youth worship, really fun and just energetic and cool. And then I released 3 solo projects on my own from that label also. And we were just loving life, man. We were traveling, and we had it. You know, we did the radio play and the videos. We did it. God blessed us with that awesome season. And I remember on our last music video, in between scenes, I was kind of just chilling out, you know, speaking with God, and He said, "I'm going to hide you for a season. I'm going to sit you down, and I'm going to teach you some things." And I was like, "God, you want me to sit down? You want me to stop singing? Why? You know, I'm doing this for you, really? You know?" And so I went home that night, and I was like, that couldn't have been God. No, you know, because I'm doing this for Him. Of course He'd want me to sing for Him, you know? And so I questioned it, and I went to church the next Sunday, and we had a guest speaker that day. And he invited people up for prayer at the end of his message. And he looked right at me, and he said, "God is going to hide you for a season." I was like, no, not that, not those words. Oh gosh, yeah. He's going to hide you for a season. And he said, when you come back, you're going to tell your story to the world. And this was 13 years ago, before I had children or anything. And I was like, God, what story would I tell? You know, I mean, my testimony was, I was a good girl. You know, I was from a really, really good family. I made wise choices, didn't get in trouble, had a very strict dad, Italian fathers. You know, you don't mess around with them. So that was my testimony. But God knew what was going to happen in our life, and He knew that we were about to face the biggest, craziest journey ever, and that He was going to write a story through it.
Right. Yep.
So
well, that's at that point we're like, okay, the end of one season. What do we do now?
Yeah.
And we decided, okay, good time to start a family. We've always wanted kids, so let's start a family.
Yeah.
So we tried starting. 1 month passed, 2 months passed, 3 months passed, never getting pregnant. Starting to question God. Okay, God, I thought you were going to take us from one season, and we thought this was the next season to start a family. So eventually, finally, after trying, a little bit of stress coming up because we can't get pregnant like we want to, finally it happens. We're like, all right, here we go. New season of life. Only 3 months later for that pregnancy to end in a miscarriage.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was our first experience with personal loss. Up to that point, we were happy with life. Everything was going good. We were out ministering, seeing people get saved, doing what we enjoyed. I was doing sound for her, and she was up there singing. And we were just enjoying life and doing what we were doing. And now we have to face our first loss. So we start questioning God again. You know, God, what's going on? I thought all things work together for good, those that love you and are called according to your purpose. And we start questioning, so what's this all about? So about a year later, you know, we get through that loss and that trauma, and then finally we do get pregnant again. Welcome our first son into the world. We called him Devin from Heaven.
Devin from heaven.
Devin from Heaven, because he was a great kid.
Yeah.
No problems, no crying, nice and easy. We could take him to movies and sit him right next to us. Psh, he wouldn't disrupt anybody.
Yeah.
So a couple years later, we have our second child,
Yeah.
and that's when the story really takes off, because our second child, although Ethan was beautiful, looked healthy, 10 fingers, 10 toes, beautiful blue eyes, he was a handful.
Yes.
For the next couple years, we didn't sleep
At all.
because he wouldn't lay still, he wouldn't be quiet, he yelling and screaming from sunup to all the way through, sundown and around.
All night long we had to take turns because he would scream all night long, so we would have to rock him, and then the moment we stopped rocking, he would scream. So we truly got no sleep for about 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I say sleep deprived, he is my rest in one of my songs, and it's, I mean, no joke. I mean, I really thought, if someone can die from sleep deprivation, I'm like, I think I could. I was so just exhausted, and he was just so hard to deal with all day long and all night long. And we started noticing some things about him that were also different from his brother.
Okay.
And that's where the story really begins. We started noticing, just developmentally, he wasn't quite there.
Okay.
The first thing we noticed, and I want to say these things because I want people to know these symptoms and watch out for their little children.
Yeah.
So the first thing was lack of eye contact. So even at 6 months old and in earlier months, lack of eye contact, not looking into my eyes, looking around my face and avoiding my eyes, that was the first thing we saw. And then we noticed that he wasn't pointing. There's a point in development where the kids, they point at things, you know, and then they start babbling, you know. Then he started doing odd things like, instead of playing with his toys, started lining them up in a row,
Okay.
you know. And then he started having, as he got bigger, different behaviors like trouble transitioning, like,
Okay.
and trouble having change. Like if I would drive home a certain way, or if I'd go a different way than normal, he would go bananas, just scream and scream until I went the same way that he was comfortable with.
Yeah.
He started having severe behaviors. He would bang his head on the floor out of frustration because he couldn't talk. He was not verbal. Even at 2.5 years old, was still not verbal, not saying any words. He would bite himself until he would bleed because he was just so frustrated. And we took our son to the pediatrician, and he basically said, I believe that your child has autism. He shows all the signs of it. And he had us go to a psychologist, and the psychologist said, your son he's moderate to severe autistic. And from the ratings that he showed, he told us, you know, he probably is not going to function very well. He's probably not going to speak. He's never going to be in a regular classroom.
Yeah.
He's not. You need to lower your expectations on this one. And he just really kindly said, you guys just need to get counseling. You really need to find out what to do with this disorder and just hold together and get counseling. And we didn't like that answer at all.
Like
you know.
that. We came to find out that 85% of marriages fail when a child's diagnosed with some kind of disorder or disease or problem. And the divorce rate's already very high.
Yes.
But 85%, even in Christian homes, fall apart and fail. We were determined not to let that happen.
Yeah.
So the big thing in families that we see is you have two different people, two different perspectives, two different wants and wills and wishes and directions. As Gina and the mom, you know, okay, what can we do to fix this? What can we do to help? What can we do to let's get on the internet, let's find a list of things to do to make this thing go away?
Yeah.
Well, as we started to do that, we have found no answers. There were no lists. You know, there were some ideas, there were some perspectives, but nothing that was showing healing.
Everything says autism is a non-curable brain disorder. There's therapies that can help, but it's a non-curable disorder. But we knew, we grew up in the church. I knew all the scriptures, man. I had been singing this song since Sunday school, but this was the first time I had to put my faith to action.
Yeah.
And we had to get together as a couple and go, okay, you know, now it's time to believe for our family.
Right.
It's okay. It's easy when you want to believe for someone else.
Yes.
Oh, brother, man, I'll pray for you, you know. But when it's your child and you see that my little boy was like an empty child. I mean, you could jump over him. You could come in and out of the room. He wouldn't even know you were there. He didn't know I was his mom. I mean, he was completely gone.
Yeah.
And so it was then that we realized we really had to fight, you know, for this one, a fight of faith.